So, thanks everybody for tuning in to my first live stream. And I'm excited to start this up. I've had some experience in the past teaching computer programming to mostly kids, some adults too, of various ages. And I wanted to start putting up some information online to show how easy it is for anybody to get started with computer programming. So that's the goal for this whole website, is to get some simple programming projects online that you can follow along with and learn how to do your own cool stuff in an hour or 2 hours whenever you have free time. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be doing a simple Pong-like game, the classic basic computer programming tutorial. And we're going to be doing it in the Java programming language, and I'll be showing how you'll be able to draw your own graphics and do animations and interact with the mouse. And using everything that I cover today, you should be able to write a lot of different types of games. There will be some limitations, of course, but you should be able to just start being creative with the code that we do today and use it to write your own games. So, without further ado, let's switch over to my desktop. Alright, so the first thing you're going to need is a Java development environment. We're going to be using one called IntelliJ, which I use in my work. It's a professional development environment, but it's free to download. And whoops, I always do this. Actually, you want to go to Google and search for IntelliJ and click the download link. And whether you're on Windows or Mac or Linux, you can download the free community edition. I already have it installed, but at home on whatever computer you're on, you can use IntelliJ, download it for free, and run your projects on any computer. So, I've already got it installed. Just going to start it up. Alright, so here it is. The first thing we're going to do is create a new project. And we will create one from scratch. Give it a name. I'm going to type Pong. You can ignore all this other stuff. And all of this is fine. It gives you some choices, but you don't need any of it. And it's going to go ahead and create your first project. It'll also give you some tips about how to use the keyboard more efficiently. Let's see, what's our tip for today? Use the pattern search in the goto class, goto symbol. Use a star. Okay, well, we're not going to need that today. We'll just close that. And here's our new project. There's no files. Close this warning. This is just specific to my computer. Over here, we've got our Pong project. And there's this folder called SRC that stands for source. That's where we put all of our programming source code. So I'm going to click on it and go to File, New to make a new file for our game. It's going to be a Java class. And let's call it Pong Game. Alright, here's our Java program. Doesn't do anything yet. There's two things we've got to do, and I'll kind of give you an overview of how we're going to be writing our game today. We're going to be starting with popping up the game window, and then adding into that the graphics. And then once we've got some graphics up on the screen, we are going to add the interaction and the animation. So we're going to have two parts. We're going to have the mouse to move the paddle around, and we're going to have the ball that's going to move around on its own. And both of those two things are going to follow a similar pattern. And the pattern that we're going to have, let me switch back to the computer. The pattern we're going to have in adding things to our Java program is basically going to follow this same technique. We're going to have something up here that we put in this first line next to our Pong game. And then we're going to have more stuff that we add inside these two curly braces. So the first thing we want to do is get our window up on the screen, and we do that like this. We've got to make our Pong game into something that can be shown on the screen. Extends JComponent, and when I finish typing JComponent, this menu will pop up. Just hit enter there, and you can see it added some more code for you so that it knows what JComponent is. And now inside the curly braces, we've got a little bit that we've got to type, which is something you'll find standard in a lot of programming languages when you get started. There's a lot of what's called boilerplate code that you just have to learn to type in, or print out a cheat sheet for yourself, or learn to be good at searching on Google so you can find it quickly. But here's our boilerplate for creating the game window. And it's going to go inside the curly braces for whatever our game is called, whether we're doing Pong or Asteroids or a program for voting or anything else. So the boilerplate code is public public static void main, and then in parentheses string with a capital S, square brackets, and then args, and then another curly brace. And in here's our code for creating the basic window. Again, it's just boilerplate, something you've either just got to memorize or print out on a cheat sheet. JFrame window equals new JFrame, and here we give it our name. This will be the title of our window. Pong Game by Aaron. Then we've got to do a few things with our window. First, we're going to put the game into it, which we do by saying window.add new Pong game with some parentheses. We've got to say window.pack, window.set default close operation, window constants dot exit on close. Let me move this over so you can see the whole thing. And then finally, two more things. Window.set location relative to null, window.set visible. You can probably guess what that last one does. All the others are kind of obtuse, but suffice to say, when you're just starting out, if you use this pattern, it's going to work for you. Alright, so we've got our basic program, and let's see, we've got to run it the first time by right-clicking, or if you're on a Mac, hold Control and click on the Pong game over here on the left and say run. Oh, I guess you can also hit Control-Shift F10 to run it, as it says in the menu. And down here it says what it's doing. It's making. And here's our window. It popped up in the middle of the screen. If I expand it, you can see it's got my title, Pong Game by Aaron. And let's just close that for now. So there's our very basic window. It doesn't do much yet. We've got to add two more things. We've got to give the window a size, and we've got to draw some stuff into the window. So let's do that. Here is the boilerplate for giving our window a size. Public dimension get preferred size, parentheses, curly brace, and in here return new dimension, the size of the window. I'll say 800 pixels by 600 pixels. And now if we run it, I'm going to use Shift F10 to rerun the game. Here's our game window. It's got our new size. So let's quit that. And now let's get to the fun part. Let's draw some stuff into the window. Let me also show you a shortcut here that you can use. The way we created this get preferred size method, we are going to do the same thing for a method called paint component. And in IntelliJ, you can use Control N and say override methods. This gives you a whole bunch of choices about all the things that JComponents can do. There's way more than we're going to use today. I'm just going to filter this list by typing paint component, and it found it right here in the middle. Hit enter, and it types all this stuff in for us. We could have just typed this manually, protected void, paint component, graphics G. And this line about super, I'm just going to delete. We don't need it. So here's our paint component method. It mentions this thing called G, which we're going to refer to draw things on the screen. So let's start by drawing the simplest thing, a rectangle. G dot fill rect, and you can see these menus are appearing as I'm typing. It gives you some hints as to what choices you've got. And here it's showing some of the parameters I have to pass. If I hit enter, it's showing this tooltip. I need an X and a Y coordinate and a width and a height for the rectangle. So let's say 0, 0, and a 100 wide by 100 tall. And if we run this, you can see it drew a rectangle here. It's a square since it's got an equal width and height. So let's adjust that a bit. This is going to be the paddle for our game. So let's make it shorter, maybe 15 pixels high, and wider, 150 pixels wide. Let's run that again. Okay, that's a good size. And now let's move it on the screen. So you can see it's in the top left corner of the screen. The very corner here is 0, 0, the XY coordinate. So we want to move it down first of all, which is in the Y direction. So that's, let's see, the whole window is 600 pixels tall, so we want to move it down maybe by 510. Let's try that. 510. Okay, that's pretty good. And then let's move it inwards some in the X direction, maybe 100. Okay, so there's our paddle. Oh, it's black. It's not a very nice color. Let's pick a new color. we're going to do this on a new line, and we've got to do it before we draw the rectangle. It's basically going to use the last color that it picked up. We say g.set color, and in here we've got to pick a color. We can say a couple different things. We can say color dot, and you can see this list of choices here: gray, magenta, orange, blue. I want brown, but I don't see brown. Let's pick orange and see what it looks like. Okay, it's kind of a yellowy orange color. So that's one way you can do it. Color dot some color, but there's only a limited number of choices. We can also say, if you're familiar with RGB values, which you might if you've done some art on the computer, we can say new color and then give it a red, green, and blue number, which are numbers between 0 and 255. So let's see. I'm just going to cheat. Well, not really cheating, but I'm going to go to Safari and find a color picker, colorpicker.com, and find a nice brown color. How about that one? So here's the numbers we should use: 110, 65, 13. 110, 65, 13. And that should be our brown color. There it is. Oh, in fact, IntelliJ even shows a little hint of what color it is on this line. And, oh, that's nice. You can even click it and change the color. That's useful. Didn't even know about that. Alright, so we've got our paddle. Let's add a background, a nice blue sky or something. So we've got to pick our new color. I'm going to use IntelliJ's color picker here and just type 000 and then click this and choose my color in here. I want like a nice light blue. Maybe like that. Okay. There's our color. And we'll say g.fillRect 0, 0, 800, 600. That's the whole size of the screen. So let's run it. And there's our blue sky. Our paddle disappeared. And that's because it's painting these things in order. So here, first it painted the paddle, and then when it painted the sky, it painted it on top of everything that was already there. So we want to flip the order of these. I'm just going to cut and paste up here. And I'm going to label these using comments in my code, which you can add with 2 slashes. Draw the sky. And down here, I'll say draw the paddle. Alright. Now they're in the right order. The paddle is on top of the sky, or in front of the sky. One more thing before we move on. We have to draw the ball. So, you can probably guess how we're going to do this. We're going to pick a color. New color. I'm going to use this trick in IntelliJ again. Just put 0 and then click this to choose my color. Let's see. Maybe like a purple basketball color. How about this one? There we go. And we don't want our ball to be a rectangle. We want it to be a circle. So we're going to use this command, fill oval. And let's just draw it at 0, 0 and get the size right. We wanted a circle, and let's make it maybe 80 pixels wide and 80 pixels tall. Let's try it. Yeah, that's a little big. Let's make it smaller. How about 30? Okay, that seems pretty good. Now, let's move it to the center of the screen, which is going to be 800 divided by 2. That's 400. 600 divided by 2 is 300. Alright, there it is in the center. Let's actually move it up a little bit by subtracting from the y. Maybe 150. Okay, that's a good position. Alright, so what we've got so far is our graphics up on the screen, and what you may not realize, probably don't realize, is that the graphics are going to be drawn whenever there's a change in the state of the program. So we don't have any state, we're just always drawing the ball in the same position, and we're always drawing the paddle in the same position. So we're going to fix that right now and allow things to start moving. Alright, back to the screen. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want the ball's X and Y position to move. So right now we're drawing the ball at 400 by 150. So let's change these so that it's not always in the same place. I'm going to give this a name instead of always being 400, ball X. And I'm going to give its Y position a name also, ball Y. So this is kind of like in algebra where we've got variables, although we can give our variables long names instead of just single letters. And now, this code is going to be able to draw the ball basically anywhere, and it's going to look into these variables and find out where to draw it each time it's asked to draw. So, one problem is the Java doesn't know what these names refer to yet. So, we've got to use, we can use another trick in IntelliJ. I'm going to type Alt Enter on my keyboard, and it's going to give some choices. We want the first one to create a field, which is a type of variable, and it gives us some more choices. We want an int, which is an integer, and I'm going to do the same thing for ball Y. I'm going to click on it, hit Alt Enter, hit Enter again to say create field, and it's created it. And let's also give these some numbers to start out. So it's going to start at 400, and the Y position is going to start at 150. And if we run it, we'll see it's right where it was. Let's try changing our X position to 600. And it drew it way over here. So you can see now we can control the position of the ball, not by changing our code, but just by changing the value that's in this variable. And the cool part is we can change this variable while our program is running with more code and tell the screen to repaint, and it'll draw the ball in a new position. And that's how we will do animation. So I'm going to put this back to 400, and it's time to add our next piece of code, which again is going to follow the pattern we used before, where we added this piece at the very top, and then we added some more stuff inside of the Pong game curly braces. So, what we do for animation is we use something called an action listener, which basically, it's a little strange sounding of a name, but an action is basically just meaning something that happens. So what's going to happen in this case is time is passing, which is not really an action, but in Java world, that's considered an action. So we're going to say implements action listener. And you can see there's a problem now with this curly line. I can use Alt-Enter to fix the problem. It wants us to implement methods. And this is actually going to create for us all the stuff that we need to add inside the Pong game curly braces. Here's the list. There's only one thing that it needs to add for us, which is called action performed. Okay. And here you can see it added it at the end of our file with a nice little comment reminding us that we need to add stuff. Action performed. So what we're going to do is we're going to say ball x equals ball x plus 5. And this is going to change the value of the variable and obviously increase it by 5. And we've got to do one more thing. We've got to tell the window to repaint, which we just say by typing repaint with a semicolon, just like every line in Java. And there's one more thing. We have to tell Java to start executing our action, and we have to tell it how often to execute it. So we're going to do that here in our main method when we create everything. And we've got to do one thing first. We've got to make a variable to hold our Pong game because we need to use it on multiple lines in this program. So here I'm going to take Pong game to define the variable equals new Pong game. And now here where I used to say new Pong game, I'm going to use that game variable. And then at the end, I'm going to add some new boilerplate code. This is how we start up a timer to run our action listener. We say timer t equals new timer. And it needs to be this one. If you see multiples in this list, you need to choose the javax.swing timer. And you can see it takes a delay, which is in milliseconds, how often to run the action. So let's run this every 100 milliseconds, which is 10 times a second. And then it needs a second parameter, which is an action listener. And that's us. That's our Pong game. So I'm going to type game to refer to the Pong game that we've created. And then t.start will start the timer. So you can write games where different actions start and stop throughout the game. But we're just going to have this continually firing every 100 milliseconds. So let's run it. We should see the ball start to move. And there it goes. It's off. Let's also have it move in the y direction. Ball y equals ball y plus 5 also. Let's make it go faster down. Plus 7. Let's run it. And there it comes. There's nothing I can do to stop it because I can't move the paddle. So, that's how we get started. Let's add the final piece, and then we'll be at the point where we're basically done learning how to write Java, and all that we have to do is be creative and fill in the instructions for how we want things to move around. So, we're going to follow the same pattern where we added a little piece at the top and then added more things inside. And the way it'll look is like this. We're going to add a mouse listener so that we can listen for mouse events. So, I would normally say implements mouse listener, but since we already are implementing action listener, I can just type a comma and add it to the list. I'm going to add a line break just to keep things on the screen. Mouse listener. And you can see the same thing happened as when we added the action listener. It gives us this curly red line. I'm going to use Alt-Enter and say Implement Methods. And here are all the mouse methods. There's a bunch of them. We are only... Oh, actually, this is the wrong one. Mouse listener is for listening to button clicks. And that's not actually what we want. We want to listen for movement in the window. So that one, for that we need a mouse motion listener. And then we'll do the same thing. Alt-Enter, Implement Methods. And these are the methods for mouse motion listener. We need them both. So just hit OK. Even though we're not going to use them both. Mouse dragged is when you move the mouse while you're holding a button down. We're not going to use that right now. And mouse moved happens whenever the mouse moves in the window. So, we've got to do two things. First, we've got some information in this mouse event, E, like the X and Y position of the mouse. So let's change the paddle position to be the mouse position. We'll say paddle X equals E dot get X. And then we're going to say repaint. So it'll draw the new state of the game. You can see we've got a new variable here, but it hasn't been created at the top where our ball X and ball Y are. So we can use IntelliJ as a trick. Hit Alt-Enter and create the field. And let's give it a starting position of 0. And now we've got to update our painting to use the new position. So the paddle, instead of drawing it at 100, we're going to draw it at paddle X. So let's try it. Oh, almost forgot. Just like we added our timer to execute the action listener, we also need to add our mouse listener to the window. We do it like this. Window.add mouse motion listener. Game. Because our game is the mouse motion listener. So now if we run it, we should see the paddle get updated when we move the mouse in the window. And there it is. The ball is going to travel right through it. Also, let's update this a little bit so that the paddle is in the center of my mouse cursor rather than on the edge of it. So there's an easy way to fix that. We said paddle X should be the mouse position's X. Well, paddle X is the top left corner of the paddle. So we want to subtract half of the width, which the paddle is 150 pixels wide. So if we subtract 75, that should center it. And it does. Looks pretty good. Alright. So, our final step, since we are running out of time today, this will show you some of the interesting stuff you can start doing with your game. You saw the ball travel right through the paddle because we don't have any code to tell it how to bounce off the paddle. So let's do that. We're going to use one new programming concept, an if statement, and it looks like this. if, and then in parentheses, you give it some condition. If the ball Y position is greater than or equal to the paddle Y position, which we don't have a variable for, that's just 510. And then we put curly braces. Then we're going to do something. And what we want to do is make the ball start moving up, which to do that we're going to have to change the speed that it's moving. So let's change the ball Y speed equals -7, because it starts out moving +7. So here's a new variable that we just made up because we need to control the speed. So I'll use Alt-Enter to create it. It's going to be +7 to start out, meaning it's moving down. And we've got to go find the place where we were using 7 before and replace it with ball Y speed. So now, every 100 milliseconds, which is every time our action is performed, we're going to change the ball's Y position by adding its Y speed. So that starts at 7. It'll later change to -7, meaning it'll go up. And then we have this if condition. We're saying if the ball moves past 510, then change its Y speed to be -7, so it'll start moving up. So this doesn't really have anything to do with the paddle yet, other than that this is the line where the paddle is at. But let's run it and see if it'll change direction. Alright, I'll keep my paddle over here to demonstrate. But there, you can see the ball bounced when it got down in line with the paddle. So, let's actually make it bounce around the screen before we do the final paddle part. And I'll go a little quick because I wanted to have a chance to do some questions, if you guys have any. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is make the ball bounce off all the sides of the screen. We've got the right side of the screen first. If the ball's X position is greater than or equal to the width of the screen, which is 800, then his X speed should change to -5. So we need this new variable. Alt-Enter and create it. It starts out at 5. And now we've got to switch our 5 here that we were using to be ball X speed. And let's try it. Let's see if he bounces off the right side now. Bounces off the paddle's position, and yep, he bounced off the right. You saw he kind of went off the screen before he bounced. That's because we didn't account for the width of the ball, which was 30. So I'll say if his X position is greater than or equal to 80 minus 30, he should bounce back toward the left. Alright, let's add the left side. If ball X is less than or equal to 0, ball X speed should equal 5, again, to bounce back toward the right. And the last one, if ball Y is less than or equal to 0, ball Y speed should equal +7, so he'll come back down. Alright, let's try it. Alright, here he comes. And he bounces off the bottom. He bounces off the right. Now he's going to bounce, hopefully. Yes. Oh, we made a mistake. He bounced in the wrong direction. It's kind of interesting, but not correct. Oh, he bounced back the wrong way. Let's see. Where is our problem here? I'm checking the wrong things. I needed to check if his x position is less than 0, then we should change his x speed. And if his y position is less than or equal to 0, we should change his y speed. Okay, now that that matches up, he should bounce all around the screen. Okay, so while we're watching this bounce, the remaining thing we want to do is make him only bounce off the bottom when he hits the paddle, and not just always bounce, because then there's no game to it. So, I'll talk more about this in future episodes, but basically, whenever he gets to the position where the paddle is, we want to check and make sure that he's not too far to the left, and we want to make sure that the ball is not too far to the right. And if he's neither of those things, that means he's right in the middle of the paddle, and that's when we want him to bounce. So, the pattern for this is we want this case. So, I'm going to delete this simple y position check, and we're going to say if the ball x is greater than or equal to the paddle x, and the ball x is less than or equal to paddle x plus the paddle's width, which is 150, and the ball's y position is greater than or equal to 510, which was the y position. Let's see how that works. Is he going to bounce? He bounced. Let's try if the paddle is not there, which is the real important part. Is he going to bounce? He didn't, because the paddle wasn't in there. So, that's our basic pattern. And actually, this is not accounting for the width of the ball, which we'll do more in future episodes when we have things moving all over the place. But the basic idea is we want to make sure that it's greater than the left side and that it's less than the right side, which the right side is the left side plus its width. And then we also need to make sure it's far down enough on the screen. So, I think that's all I'm going to cover for today, but hopefully that gives you guys some ideas about what you can do with your own games. Whoops, I was talking and I missed the ball. Let me try this again. Alright, I'm not going to miss it. Yes, and you can see we still have a problem of not accounting for the height of the ball. We could add that just by adjusting the numbers we're using. And we bounced. Alright, bounces off the side, bounces off the top. Alright, looks pretty good. me switch to the webcam. Having trouble with my stream. Just a second. Whoops, excuse me, technical difficulties. All right. So, what I wanted to point out was that we wrote a Pong game today, but basically the pattern that I showed could be used for doing a lot of different kinds of games. We started with first drawing graphics, and then using some variables to make the graphics move around. We added a timer to control the speed of the animation, and we use the mouse motion listener. I also briefly mentioned you can use the mouse listener to handle clicks of the mouse, and also it's pretty easy to figure out from what we use today. There's another one called keyboard listener, or excuse me, key listener, that you can use to check the keyboard. So that's the basic pattern for doing some simple games in Java. I will be doing a few more of these just so you can kind of get a hang of it and start to learn some of the nuances of what all this stuff means. Like, we wrote a lot of code that may not mean much to you yet, but when you start seeing a few different examples, you'll start recognizing the patterns and understanding a bit more what exactly is happening. So, with that said, let's see. It looks like everybody's pretty quiet today, but if you're in the chat and have any questions about computer programming or something you want me to show real quick in the code, just speak up. And if not, that's going to be it for today. I'm going to be posting this video onto YouTube in a few hours, hopefully, and posting the code up as an example. But hopefully this is enough for any of you guys to get started and write a couple simple games. If you make anything cool, be sure to send me a screenshot or a copy of your code so I can feature it perhaps on a future episode. And oh yeah, don't forget to tell your friends next week is, as you may know, my hotkeys for switching the camera are not working anymore. So, next week, as you may know, is the weekend before Halloween. So, I'm going to be doing a Halloween-themed show. We're going to be doing a scary game to scare your friends with, so be sure to check in to that. Or if you like to be scared also, invite your friends so they can make a scary game for you. And be sure to check the Facebook page or sign up for the mailing list at buildsomethingawesome.org to get notified about when the future live streams will be going live. Next week will be at this same time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.